back to my channel. Disclaimer, this is going to be a really deep video. I'm doing my testimony video and I am so nervous. Like, really nervous. Yeah, I mean, I almost didn't want to do this just because testimony video was so hard because it's your story. Like, it's your story. And no one else can tell your story better than you. But with telling your story comes truth. And yeah, it's time to tell the truth. First of all, I would just like to say that I hope that my hope for this video is that it blesses many people and that people who have been through similar things as me can see that there is hope for you and that it is never too late. So, without further ado, I'm going to tell my story. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan in a single family household. I never really grew up with my father being around. My father died the same year I was born, and because of that I always had like like a hole in, not necessarily like my heart, but I just felt like this need for love. Like how most people wanted to like grow up and be lawyers and doctors. And like, no, I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to be a wife. I had all of these goals on what I wanted, and none of them had anything to do with academia or college. I just wanted love. I wanted to be, there are few people married in my family, so I wanted just to have that marriage that my mother like never had. And that's exactly like what I strive for my whole life. So very much of my testimony is just trials and errors of love and how I found the one who loved me 100% for me, and how that's never going to change. I never really grew up in a Christian household. Like, we believed in God, of course. We didn't go to church every Sunday. I have church experiences because shout out to my cousins Dwayne and Shelly. They used to drag me. I won't say drag. They used to take me to churches all the time. And I remember getting up like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning to get ready for church. And so I know all about that. And with going to so many churches, I have so many different experiences with different types of worship. Like black churches, white churches, mixed race churches, denominational, non-denominational, Baptist. I can go on and on. But nothing really stuck. It wasn't until my senior year that Dwayne and Shelly again invited me to a church, but this time, like, my whole family started attending, from my mom to my aunt, cousins. It was lit. Like, we were all in the same church, and with us being like a really small family, to see us all together, just, I don't know, it made me feel like our family was a lot bigger than what it was. But, oh, my throat. 1 second. Ooh. So, with that being said, like, it was cool to have us all going to church. I never really seen that side of my family before. But with that came a lot of pressure because my younger cousins were going to the church too, and I felt like on days when I didn't show up, I was letting everybody down. And just gonna say, I always kind of grew up a very depressed child. I was bullied from like elementary school all the way up into high school. So I can just remember, for as long as I can remember, I was always very depressed. I always had like a lot of suicidal thoughts for as long as I can remember. I've always, probably early as 7, honestly. And because of that, I just had become accustomed to depression. Other people couldn't understand it. But I would just let my depression just like swallow me whole. And for some reason, church would depress me like a lot. And it wasn't that it wasn't a good church. I loved our youth group, but it was just pressure. Even within our youth group, I'm a newbie to this church, and a lot of the people in our youth groups have been going to this church for years, so they knew how to pray, and I never really how to pray like that. And it almost felt like a competition. Like when we would have to do our testimonies, it was like people were like constantly one-upping each other. Like, oh, I pray every day. Well, God was talking to me during my midterm. I'm like, God was talking to you? Like, I'm trying to get God talk to me for a minute. I mean, I'd be praying, but you don't be, saying anything back. So I was starting to feel like, okay, I'm not doing this right. Like, why isn't this working? And that just became this thing. I felt like in order to become a Christian, I had to, I don't know, it was like Christians was like, being a Christian was like the Boy Scouts to me. I had to get all these different pins and buttons on my Christian vest. So I started doing stuff like that. I started tweeting Bible verses like I seen everybody else in my youth group doing. I started bringing my Bible to church all the time with me. I started working at the church Bible stores. Like, this is gonna work. I just started being involved in everything else like they were, because before me going to church on Saturdays and stuff, I wasn't, going to soup kitchens. I mean, like, these kids in our youth group were dedicated. It was my senior year, so I wasn't really honestly thinking about going to volunteer at soup kitchens and do all of these like game nights at the church. Like, no, I'm trying to senior ditch day. I'm trying to, skip with my friends and stuff like that. So I was very conflicted. My first introduction to Jesus was my senior year of high school, so I was very distracted with dating and boys and just friends. And the type of friends I had, they were good friends, but they were off on their own path. And it was like this weird point senior year, but like I gotta say this, like, just all my friends became gay. So I had to deal with that. And then going to church, I really didn't know where to fit. I certainly knew I didn't fit with my group of friends at the time, but I had known them all my life. Living in such a small town, I have had the same friends since elementary all the way up into high school. We all went to the same elementary school, middle school. We just kind of followed each other. So it was really no making new friends. And I just was depressed. I'm like, I don't know what's going on with my friends. Everybody's changing, and I'm not really trying to change in that way. And then I wasn't fitting in with my youth group. I was just alienated. It would become times when it was time for me to go out with my friends. I didn't want to go because I was depressed. I didn't want to go to church. So I just stayed at home, and I would just be in the bed and just depressed. I was like this my whole senior year. And then my mom decided, hey, it's time for you to get baptized. And I do not look back on being baptized as a happy time for me, because when I was going out with my friends, because I was trying to conform and fit in, I was just trying so hard to fit in, I started drinking and things like that, and I just felt bad. I'm like, I'm not worthy to be baptized. Like, I'm not even doing things, a quote-unquote Christian should do. I'm not living this Christian life. I can't do this. This isn't gonna work. I was just drinking Ciroc with my friends, playing Truth or Dare. Who am I to get baptized? Like, I remember getting baptized and feeling ashamed, like, feeling like everybody knew what I had did, and I felt like I wasn't worthy. It wasn't a freeing experience like most would describe it as. To me, it was just like, I felt like I was living a double life, a secret. So, the next thing that happened, which was a very pivotal moment in my walk with Christ, was my family relocated. Yeah, my senior year, towards the end after I graduated, the fall in the Michigan economy was so bad, my mom ended up having to relocate to Texas. I say Texas lightly, because when we first moved to Texas, we actually moved to a small border town called Alamo, Texas, which was 5 minutes away from the border. So you really should say Mexico. And that didn't really help with my alienating, because I was the only black person everywhere I went. Like, I was the only black person at my job. I was the only black person at school. Only black person walking in the neighborhood. So I constantly just felt alienated. I was far away from all my friends. This was just a really, like, all those thoughts that I would have when I was younger, like being depressed, were like full throttle. Like, I would wake up and just be like, God, why did you wake me up today? I didn't want to wake up. I would just be so upset. Like, you could have just let me die. Because I felt like without my friends and without like my family members, I just felt like, well, I felt like there was no purpose for my life. I didn't get it. I wasn't in this relationship that I wanted to be in. That wasn't working for me. Because like I said, I always just wanted love and to be married and have kids. I can honestly say for as long as I remember, I had very pure intentions for my heart and my body. I wanted to be celibate before I even knew that was a God thing. Like, I remember watching like Jessica Simpson and Jonas Brothers being like hyped about being pure and having purity rings. I'm like, ooh, that's gonna be me. Like, I was that girl, but like my friends weren't like that, and I just never really fit. I was always made fun of for being the quote unquote good girl, goody two shoes. So I didn't have any of that. I didn't have my title of being the good girl to hang on to. I didn't have church. I didn't have friends. All I had was work and school. That was it. And I was in school, I believe, for culinary at the time. And I just was not feeling Texas. But on the flip side, my mom and my brother were like prospering. My mom like had all these friends at her job. My brother had made friends. And then it was just me. So because of that, I just really started to dive into like social media, like being on Twitter and stuff and Facebook as just a way to escape. And from that, I met a guy who essentially introduced me into what would be my new religion, which would be New Age spirituality. And we would just like talk on like Twitter and stuff all the time. Eventually, we exchanged numbers, and we ended up being in a relationship for like 4.5 years, on and off. Most of it was long distance because he lived in Michigan and I lived in Texas. And it was very strange because for me to have had these Christian beliefs and know that he was atheist, I had no guard up like I should have. Like I had no guard up at all. And I felt like I can quote unquote change him. Because we had so much stuff in common. I was like, oh, it's just that one little thing. Oh, him being atheist isn't that bad. But a lot of things he was familiar with, like things he talked to me about, like the law of attraction, The Secret. I don't really know how to describe it. I grew up reading those books because my mom, who identified herself as Christian but would read stuff like that because my mom was like part of Oprah's book club, and like Oprah endorses books like that. So my mom never, I wouldn't say went the spirituality like route. I was just always taught to never judge people by their race, gender, creed, color, stuff like that. I had a very free-spirited upbringing. I'll say that. My mom never pushed religion on me or anything. My mom never really pushed anything on me, to be honest. My mom was just a very free-spirited mother. So when she found out he was atheist, that wasn't really a big thing for her. It was just like us being long distance, and it was he respectful to me. And he was at first, absolutely. Like we had a great relationship. The long distance thing didn't even matter. We were sending each other gifts back and forth. But there were always red flags. Like he knew that I wanted to save myself for marriage, but he would make like little jokes. And a person will always tell you who they are if you listen. Like they always tell you first. There was no surprises when people quote unquote flip the script. You knew from the beginning. You just didn't want to hear it. And he would always talk about. He would make very rude, disrespectful jokes about God, and I would push them under the rug. And he would make jokes about him being a God, and it's just like I had so many signs of what that personality he had, and I just didn't believe it. Within our 2-year span of being long distance, he cheated on me several times, and I forgave him because we had these plans on being married. I was supposed to move to Michigan, and we were going to get married and be engaged and be this big happy family. So, after he cheated on me several times, I started to feel like it was my fault, and he, of course, told me it was my fault. And I started to believe it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop just visiting you on the holidays when my whole family is going anyways, and make the initiative to see you on, like, you know, your birthday and stuff. So my mom was going to see him for my birthday, but my mom knew that he was cheating on me because I always, like I said, had a very just depressing demeanor like my whole life. So when big things like that happened to me, it just intensified my depression. I was just extrally just alone. I was just more sad, more of the not eating, and just it was just more of just sob. Like I would cry all the time. And I'm the type of person, well I was the type of person, when I'm sad, I like to find other things to intensify my sadness, if that makes sense. Like I'll like have like a sad playlist of sad songs to listen to, sad movies that can relate to this sadness. I'll just create this like sad bubble and just do the sad dance in it. And then that was a lot dealing with him. He made me sad like a lot because like no one wants to get cheated on, especially multiple times. But I felt like well, the only way to solve this is to move. So I ended up moving to Michigan to be with him, and that was the other 2 year span of our relationship. So we did 2 years long distance, 2 years actually face to face. And that is when I was introduced to to New Age spirituality full on. We started watching like spirit science videos together. I started learning more about chakras, and this is what became to solidify our relationship. We weren't having all these relationship problems we were before because now we're on the same accord. It wasn't me being Christian and him being atheist, but us both being New Agers. And I just dived in head first because one thing about me, although I didn't have academic goals because I was so obsessed with just love and finding the one, I was always the smart girl. I always loved reading. And anybody who has ever tried New Age will understand you gotta do a lot of reading, like a lot. To reach this level of enlightenment, you have to study like so much, and that was the fun part for me. That was the fun part. It was just like, ooh, just all this reading and learning about, because you're New Age spirituality has a way of reworking your mind on everything you believe. And when I say everything you believe in, like everything, like from the color of the sky to how you see birds to how you see animals, it's just way more than how you see God. It's everything. But spirituality, New Age spirituality teaches you that there is not bothered. New Age spirituality has a way of just teaching you that God is within you, like happy all the time and not arguing. And two, it came without judgment. It wasn't any rules. It wasn't telling you you can't have sex before marriage. It wasn't telling you all of these. There were no commandments. And with that type of religion, it's very dangerous because it's so easy for you to lose yourself. It's so easy for you to lose yourself because there are no rules. And that was the type of relationship we ended up having, a no rules relationship. And it was just like little by little, my moral ground was being dissolved. And within our 2 years of being in a relationship face to face, just with doing New Age came other things because I was really starting to get to know him because we weren't just on the phone, we were like in person. I had no idea he was into as many drugs as he was. He would make drug jokes, but I just didn't believe him, if that makes sense. Because I never was that type of person. I didn't, like I said, like I was always the good girl in my group. So I wasn't accustomed to any of the things he was doing. I grew up a very sheltered life, and no, I wasn't accustomed to it, but I didn't want to seem uncool. So when he started experimenting with different drugs, I did as well. And that was a really hard time for me because I always said I would never do things like that. And I still would try to have a moral ground, and I would just like, oh, I'm not going to do anything hard. So I never went as far as like cocaine and stuff like that, but all drugs are bad. And I did prescription pills with him, all types of different psychedelic drugs. And for him, because one of the things he would always say about me is that I wasn't mentally stimulated. I'm really feeling air quotes today, but that I wasn't mentally stimulating, and under the influence I was. And I just saw that as, oh, well, this is going to make our relationship work. If I gotta be on drugs to make our relationship work, then so be it. Because honestly, I can honestly say, God, thank you. Like, even then, before I even knew him, like, I never had become addicted to drugs. I never was, like, having massive withdrawals like he was. Like, he would be, like, zoning out and, like, freaking out. And I'd be like, I still don't feel anything. Like, what? It's not working for me. And that's probably because God didn't want it to work for me because he had better things for me. But, I did that for quite a while, and there was definitely times when he would be like at work or alone where I'd be like, what am I doing? What am I doing in this house? Why am I doing these things? And I felt like I was so far gone that I couldn't talk to God. I felt like when he saw me doing these things, I felt like I was disappointing him. So I let that relationship just consume me, and it became very, very toxic because with drug use comes drug abuse. And although I was experimenting with him. I wasn't as attached to it as he was, and he would lash out on me when he was having withdrawals, and then it became the thing that I wasn't enough for him. And then he tried to bring other people into our relationship. He was just into a lot of stuff that I did not know he was into, like as far as polyamory. He tried to put multiple people in our relationship, and I just wasn't, it was too much for me. And I left. I got strong enough to leave. And I just felt like, okay, what's next? I just told my mom I was moving with this guy so we can get married and have this family. And there was no faith after that. Like, I didn't have a faith. I had this new age thing that I had with him, and I just took it and ran with it for myself. So I started having my own beliefs, and there was a part of me that hoped that we would still get back together, so I kind of made myself the girl he was looking for. I changed the way I dressed. I changed the way I talked. I changed everything because I wanted to be perfect for him, not even thinking about myself. And with that, I attracted more new age people. It got to the point where I was eventually friends with people. Everybody in my circle didn't believe in God. Like, we all were these new age people. And I think what a lot of people, well, back then, well, now it's like really popular, which is so crazy to me, because when I was a new ager, it wasn't like at all. But back then, it was kind of like almost, it was the cool thing because no one knew about it. Like, people use the word woke now, but like if you was like, oh yeah, you woke, you hip, people were like, oh, okay. Like, it was like a secret handshake to say you were woke. And that was me. I became that girl quoting all type of Hindu quotes and stuff like that, and wearing chakra beads, and just experimenting with just like all different types of religions and essentially witchcraft when it came to chakra enhancing, crystal charging, you name it, I did all of it. And I was just essentially still looking for, not even myself. I don't know what I was looking for, but I was looking for something and I couldn't find it. And after I broke up with, we'll call him Carl. After I broke up with Carl and moved out because it was just too much for me, even though I wanted to still have my good girl remnants and still be a new ager. So all the stuff he was doing with the polyamory and sleeping with multiple people, and he was like that guy. Like, I didn't want anything of that. I still wanted to study New Age, but I still had hopes of being with one man, being married, and having kids. So after I moved out with him, I moved in with my best friend, who was also a New Ager. And we were just all, it was like 5 different couples in the house. Because just my luck, I moved in with my best friend, and a guy that I dated in like high school, who I had like this massive crush on, was living there too. So I was like, okay, yep. It didn't work out with Carl because I'm supposed to be with Tyler. So I tried to make that work, and yeah, that just became my cycle. I just would throw myself into these relationships, not even worried about myself, and just try to make this like American dream picket white fence thing happen. So I moved in there, and that is where I would say a lot of my testimony is just me stumbling upon God. Like, he was not giving up. He was trying to get me as many times as he could, and it was in a way that stuff would happen. I would just meet someone, and that's ended up what happened. I moved into this house and everything, and I met this girl who was Christian. Like, they were like the perfect couple, like, in the house. Like, they was, going to Bible study together, always together. Like, they never fought or argued. I'm just like, what are they doing? And I would ask her, like, girl, what is your secret? Because me and Tyler trying to get it together. Because we were in a situationship. And I want a real relationship. And she's like, oh, you should come to church with me. Now, me being new age, I'm like, church? Nah, I'm good. And she would constantly try to push me to go to church. And I'm just like, no, it's not for me. I got my crystals over here. This is fine. So eventually I did go to church with her. And one of the first things I noticed, it was not like what I expected. Like, it was a small church, and it was like mostly people our age. Like, at this point, I was like in my 20s, my early 20s. So I was just like, oh, okay, it's not a bunch of like stuffy people in big church hats. Okay, this might work, I was still very like hesitant. What got me, unfortunately, was I noticed a pattern. Everybody at this church, including my friend, were bringing like their boyfriends, and then their boyfriends would start going, and then boom, instantly they're like engaged. Like everybody's testimony was engaged testimony. So I'm like, if I bring Tyler, Birdman hands, okay? If I bring Tyler here, we're gonna be married too. Like I'm telling you, I was not focused on myself. I just wanted love so bad. So I ended up trying to get him to go. He never wanted to go, like never wanted to go to church with me. And that stopped me essentially trying to find God. I'm like, okay, you're not trying to go to church with me. Then what am I doing this for? Because if I'm not doing this for a relationship, I mean, isn't that what you're supposed to do? God wants us to be in relationships. Then what? What am I doing this for? So he would never want to go to church with me, and it put a strain on our relationship. And I started, this part is important for a later part of my story. So I started confiding in my best friend. I was just like that girl. We were like, oh, Tyler get on my nerves, and he just treated me so wrong. He don't want to go to church, and la 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 la. And like, even though he was like already my best friend, we became like really close because he would do things that Tyler wouldn't do with me, like pray with me, like anything Tyler wouldn't do, like my best friend would do. My best friend Darren would do. And that became a problem because Tyler was like, okay, you call yourself trying to be in this relationship. How does two people live in a house and sleep in the same bed but our relationship is beyond me? But I was still trying to like make a relationship work when we were in a situationship, whatever. You know how millennials are. And he was just like, you can't say you're trying to work on me with this and just be with Darren, and then you're mad because I don't want to go to church and da da da. Because he was like super new age, and I was like trying to make that transition for God, but I wanted to bring Tyler with me. And even though Darren was also a new age believer, he grew up in the church. So when I would ask him to pray, even against his new age beliefs, he would do it because that's just how close we are. We both grew up without dads, and that became like our soul tie, like our brokenness from our father. So we were just already close on that level. So I can ask him to do anything, and he would essentially do it for me. So asking him to pray for me and pray with me was nothing. But my friend at the time who was introducing me to the church didn't like that. She felt like I was too focused on guys, not focused enough on God. Because honestly, I started just praying with Darren instead of going to Bible study with her. And I don't necessarily know why what happened, but we ended up getting to like an altercation, like a physical altercation. That did it for me. I was like, okay, yeah, like I really wasn't going to church before. Like now I'm really not about to go to church. You're supposed to be this holy person, and you just physically fought me. So that must mean that's how all Christians are. It totally dissolved my faith. I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this so I can just be a fake Christian like the rest of y'all. No, I'm not doing it. So eventually I had to move out because, you can't fight your roommates. And I'm thinking, even though, me and Tylen's relationship wasn't solidified, if I say I got kicked out and we're this unit, that's what happens when you play house. You have these husband expectations from somebody that's not your husband. So they're not thinking like a husband is supposed to think. But I was expecting him because I was this ride or die or whatever. I did everything, he wanted me to do. I grew up very privileged, so even that many people living in a house and struggling was very new to me. But, I had to put this persona on that I could just, go through anything. You know how it is. Like, oh, we go through everything because we're going to have this greater outcome. I don't care. I'll be broke and poor with you. It doesn't matter because our love will feed us type stuff. And, Thailand, I got kicked out. Like, what am I going to do? And he's like, oh, well, we all kind of got kicked out and it's your fault, but I'm living with my dad, so whatever. So I'm just like, what? You're just going to go live with your dad? And like, what? So here I go. Like, I chased this whole relationship and he didn't even have my best interest at heart. But my friend Darren did. And he was like, oh, you can just live with me and my grandmother. But that really shifted our relationship because he started to get this like cockiness about him. He was like, I don't even know why you want to be with Thailand. Like, I take better care of you than he did. And our relationship just became very, like, he was 2 years older than me, but he like really felt like he was like my dad. And it was like really really strange. And yeah, he just got very like possessive and like had this ownership. Even though like I was living at his grandparents' house, like I had my own room, he had his own room, but he would just like bust in my door all the time. And I feel like us as women, we never want to get loud. We always try to make a stand without being too loud. So when he would do stuff like that, I'm like, oh, don't come in my room like that, boy. You so stupid. Like, oh, you get on my nerves. When I really should have been like, hey, I'm a woman. You don't know if I could be undressing or anything. Don't just stumble in my room. But it was like essentially he became more comfortable and more comfortable and more comfortable. And this is really hard for me to talk about. Whew. But he started to have feelings for me, and I had feelings for him, but I still had loyalty to Thailand. And I was like, no, you know, even though me and Thailand aren't together, like, I can never do that. And one day he just didn't take no as an answer, and he raped me. And that was the nail in the coffin for me, because I had already didn't trust men because of everything that had happened with Caro and Thailand. But then my best friend rapes me? What? You know, I don't trust anybody now. And you want to talk about God? God was so far from my mind. And I just was so broken. And when it happened or whatever, I didn't tell anybody at first. The next day it came around and he was just like really cocky about it, like, yeah, I knew I could get you, and I knew you weren't a good girl like you say you were. And you gotta remember, my whole life, this has been my goal, to be this good girl. This has been who I am. So when he said that, it was like glass shattering. And that just became my mantra. I'm nobody's good girl. I used to say that all the time. And I went into like a downward spiral because he knew I wasn't gonna tell. But he got scared and essentially did the worst thing you could do to somebody like me who was trying to hold on to my good girl name. He told everybody I came on to him. His girlfriend tried to fight me. I was really close to like his grandparents. They thought like I was just this loose girl. And that went on for years. It got to the point where even when I would try to be in other relationships, everybody knew me as the crazy girl that broke up Darren and his girlfriend, which wasn't the case. And I was just too scared to ever tell anybody the truth. So I just let it go on until everybody think I was crazy. And I just became exactly what I strived for years to not become. All my moral grounds were already loose from being a new ager to begin with. I was already free love and, oh, we're all one, and, oh, you know, there are no rules to love and all this stuff. But after that, honestly, I just started giving myself to everybody, like a year straight of just wild, just craziness, just losing myself, drinking. I started smoking and everything, and I just was not who I wanted to be. And that went on for years. I think that went on for maybe like a good 2-3 years where I was just wild, like, yeah. And I did that for a long time, and I made a lot of mistakes. I ended up getting back with Thailand, and he had so much resentment about what happened because I told him the truth, because I trusted him. So I told him what happened, regardless of what everybody was saying. Everybody, you know, saying I'm this homewrecker. And he made me try to like earn my trust back. Like he really tried to make me feel like it was still my fault. Well, what were you wearing that day for that to happen? And that's because you were too close to him. And because, once again, all I wanted was this relationship to work. Even when I was still wilding, my goal was still, it has to end in marriage at some point. And yeah, we tried to be back together, but it was still so much more resentment towards, because that was his best friend too. Like, I met Darren through Thailand. So that went on for a while, us trying to get back in a relationship, but me dealing with rape. Like, I would have outbursts, I would have like flashbacks, and it was too much, and he didn't understand like how I couldn't just get over it quickly. Eventually, from just being reckless and stuff with Thailand, I ended up pregnant, and I lost the baby, and that was just it for me. I wasn't living with Darren anymore. Obviously, he had kicked me out after, you know, everything had happened. So I was living with my brother and sleeping in the living room. But I'm like, I was not concerned about that. Even after I had lost the baby, I still was trying to be with Thailand, and it wasn't working. Like, I feel like it was just too much stress for him because of, like, it's hard dealing with someone who's been through something like that. Like, I was always really emotional. I wasn't really comfortable anymore with, like, intimacy. Like, I would do it, but I wouldn't be there mentally. I would just be somewhere else. Because essentially, that's, at that point, I felt like that's all I was good for. And that was it. I ended up calling my mom, like, I can't do this. I was homeless for like a good 2 years. I was like, I can't do this. This isn't working. So I moved back home in 2014, back to Texas with my mom. And I just tried to hide everything that happened. Like, I didn't tell her what happened because me and Darren were like, we were close. I was my best friend. So my family knew his family knew my family. And if I told my mom something like that, she would probably try to go find that man. So I was just like, we're still loyal to our friendship. Like, I'm not, although he was throwing my name all through the mud in the streets, like, I just couldn't do that to him. So I just came back to Texas, tried to start a new life, like nothing happened. But I still wanted something. There was still this thirst. I remember coming back home, going through my mom's garage, like looking for like all her new age books. Like The Secret was the book I was looking for. I was like, I gotta get back on track. Maybe if I just really study this time with new age, like it'll work and I'll be happy and I'll get over all this stuff that's happened to me. And I ended up finding a book that for real changed my life, and it was a Yanya Von Sant's book. I hope I'm saying that right. One Day My Soul Opened Up. Now it's packaged to look like a new age book, and so I'm like, oh, this is perfect. It got this big sun on it. It has this like elusive kind of title, and I started reading it, and it wasn't talking about like God at first, but it was a self-help book. Like, there were sections when you would write about things about yourself and retell a lot of traumatic things, and it was stuff I wasn't ready to talk about, like my rape, my drug use, and like all that stuff. And I was like, okay, this is cool. Like, look at me helping myself out to get back on the right track. But there was one chapter in particular that talked about God, and for the first time, it didn't rub me in the wrong way. I was like, cool. If Yvonne say God, cool, like whatever. So there was a chapter when it asked you to write about the events in your life and then pray over them. And I'm like, wait, pray? We don't do that. But I did it anyways. And I remember doing it and feeling the presence of God for the first time, just feeling like at peace. And I'm like, okay. Like, I wasn't ready to call myself a Christian again, but I was like, okay, this works. I started a new job working at a school or whatever, because I'm a teacher. And I started working at a school, and I just remember one day there was this one lady who's was very known for just one of the people who just talked about God all the time. And I remember just feeling just extremely just hurt about everything that happened before I had moved back. Now, this was like 2 years after the fact, but I just remember feeling like I have to let this go. And I don't know, I just went to her, like, hey, can I talk to you? Like, I know you like believe in God and stuff, but I'm more of a spiritual person. Like, even with the book I would carry around, like, it was, I could tell God was definitely making changes in my life. Because it went from just being a book to I was calling it my Bible. I'm like, oh, let me grab my Bible before I leave out of work or whatever. And people knew me of that. Like, I was a girl who, on the lunch break, like everybody doing their like notes and assessments and stuff. Yeah, I was doing that, but I made sure I was reading this book because it was essentially helping me. So I went and I talked to this woman, and I just let it all go. And I was just sobbing and just crying, because I hadn't cried. You have to understand, like, after everything that happened, I never stopped to heal myself. I just kept putting myself in relationships. I kept putting myself in situations, and I just cried. And I remember her just looking at me. It was like, you want to go to church? And I remember just being like, yeah, okay, I'll go to church. And that day changed my life. I remember just like waking up so pumped and ready to go to church. And when I went, I felt the presence of God so strong than I had ever felt before. I didn't feel ashamed about all the things that happened in my life. I didn't feel like a rape victim. I didn't feel like a drug abuser. I didn't feel like this depressed girl. I didn't feel like this girl that wasn't worthy of love. I felt love so deep just from walking through the door. Like, the pastor hadn't even spoke yet, and I just felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. And I tell her probably like every other day that I love her. Like, I text her like, Kanisha, I love you so much, because she held my hand and introduced me to the first person ever in my life to love me wholly and completely with no strings attached. That is one thing I tell people all the time. You know how many books I had to buy to be a New Ager? You know how much a chakra bracelet run? Do you know how much those crystals are? Do you know how much God costs? He's free. Like, salvation is free. And I jumped in head first. Like, after that, I started going to church all the time. And her church was far, but she would pick me up and take me to church. Like, the whole nine. But with that came temptation, because now I really was trying to change my life. I was like, all right, okay, let's do it. Celibacy. Let's do it. Like, everything. I'm giving up. I had already stopped drinking and stuff just naturally. But I was ready to just jump into this Jesus life, because just that moment of just feeling God's love and just feeling like, okay, this is it. This is where I'm supposed to be. I wanted that feeling forever, because it was the best feeling. It felt way better than any man I had been with. It felt way better than any drug I had tried. It felt amazing. I wanted to feel that forever. So I began to just like start studying. I started reading the Bible. I started going to Bible study and stuff like that. But it was still that part of me that wanted love. Like, I still wanted love so bad. And so I started looking for it. Because at first I was stumbling into these relationships. No, I was looking for it. And I was looking for this, my wants had changed. I was like, I need this godly man. I was trying to be on my Megan Good and Devon Franklin, okay? So I was on the search looking for that, and I met a guy named Greg. And yeah, I met him, and everybody was like, girl, that's your husband. I was like, you gotta tell me, I know. And that relationship went on for a long time, but when it ended, I lost it, because it was just like, okay, now my godly relationship not working. Hold on, Jesus, I thought this, thought we was good now. And I went, because he was from Michigan. I have a bad thing with dating guys from Michigan, even though I live in Texas. But I went back to Michigan to, like, follow him, because, like, it was very hard for me to just want God. I had to have God. I wanted everything. I didn't want to give anything up. So I followed him back to Michigan. Like, I spent all my savings and followed him back to Michigan. And, like, he didn't want nothing to do with me. Like, he didn't want anything to do with me. And that hurt so bad. And I just resorted back into everything I had got saved from. I started drinking again. Like, that whole weekend, I was just drinking and I was a mess. And, like, I often question, like, the realness of my friends, because not once did nobody tell me to stop. Like, I was on a world tour. I went to go see all my exes. I went and seen Carl, Tyler. I went to go see everybody. And it was just really bad, because it was like everything God had saved me from, everything I had prayed to be broken, I went back and touched all over again. And I felt bad, because it's like, wow, I was finally doing things right. And then I came back to Texas after doing all my dirt, and I just cried. Like, I hadn't did that yet. I finally cried out to God, and I was just like, because when I was down there, I didn't have no job either. Like, I bought a ticket to go see him for 2 weeks. So you know I lost my job. I didn't care. I was like, God will provide me with another job because this is my husband. What do you mean? So I prayed. I was just like, God, I will let it go. I will delete every man's number in my phone. I will do everything, God. What is it that you want so I can have you completely? And I heard God's voice for the first time. He said, let go. And that was hard because that was what I could never do. I could never just have God. And I said, okay. I said, okay, God, I'm going to let go. I'm going to let go. And I did. I deleted every guy's number on my phone. And I cried and I wept and I said, God, I'm sorry for all the things that I did. And Anisha introduced me to God. Like going to church with her, that's how I found God. But the moment I cried out to God was when I became serious in my faith. When I gave up drinking, when I gave up trying to date, when I gave up trying to find love, and I just focused on Him. And ever since then, now I'm not going to say it's an easy walk, but I had to understand, like, you have to let things go. And that was hard for me. I don't even like throwing away clothes. So what do you mean? But I say all that to say, after everything that I had been through, like, God was always there for me. Like, I can think of multiple times when I could have died. Multiple times when I was supposed to be addicted to drugs. Multiple times. Let me tell you something. Like, going through being, like, a rape victim to someone who was close to you, that was supposed to break me. I was supposed to be in somebody's nut house right now. And it didn't. It didn't, because God's love sustained me even before I knew who He was. So I'll say that all to say, I don't care what you've been through. Never let anybody tell you you are not worthy of salvation. Don't ever let anybody tell you that. I can even say, filming this testimony video was hard because I was constantly reminded of who I was in my past. And I don't like talking about those kind of things because they were very hard for me. But I am a completely different person now because of God. Like, I love on a healthy level now. God taught me how to love again, not just myself, but others. And I would have never did that if I would have never let go. And I just say that to say, no matter what you have been through, it's never too late. My story is long-winded for a reason, okay? Because it took me several chances, several tries to finally just say, God, I am yours. I am yours. I am ready and willing and worthy and receiving of your love. And that's all it takes, is for you to say that. So I strongly urge anyone, no matter what you are dealing with, to call out unto God, and I promise you, He will answer. Whew. This was really, really long, but I just pray that this blesses people. Thank you for watching, and oh gosh, I just feel so much better now that's off my chest, honestly. I pray for the same freedom that my testimony has given other people. If you can relate to this in any way, shape, or form, then you should just know that there is light in your darkness, and there is an end to your means. There is a happy ending to your story. I thank you for watching.